students. In our today's class we will see the objectives or purpose of internal audit. So internal audit aims to provide proper control. So as I have told you, internal auditor not only checks the financial statements, but along with that he also checks the rules, regulations and procedures of the company. Okay, if the company has an internal auditor, he not only corrects and gives the information or corrects the financial statements, but also the laws and rules. In case of law and rules, if they are not followed properly, then he insists to follow that. Okay, so that the penalty won't be imposed in higher level. Suppose if there is a procedure in which wastages are more, then he tries to lessen that procedure so that there will be optimum utilization of resources and minimum wastage of resources. Okay, this entire procedure is known as monitoring and controlling. Okay, so he does these things. Next, to check the accounting system. The accounting system of companies may vary from company to company. Okay, so it may be cash system or accrual system, whether it is correct or not. Suppose if it is company form of business, then accrual is compulsory for such businesses. Okay, they cannot maintain on cash basis. So even in professionals, okay, suppose if you are a professional, you can follow cash system, but up to a certain limit. Suppose if your remuneration or fees is more than the maintained or the given limit, at that time what happens is you must follow accrual system only. Okay, so whether your accounting system is proper or no, financial statements are done up to date or not, even this task is done by the internal auditor. So take one example. Okay, so how does it work? The accountant will pass the journal entries, so the internal auditor will check it on the basis of the size of the organization. Suppose if it is a big organization, then he checks daily. Okay, whatever the accounting transactions are passed, he checks it every day. If it is middle size, then he checks the financial statements or the he checks the accounting transactions weekly. If it is a very small unit, then he checks it fortnightly. Okay, so listed companies like your Tata, Reliance and all, what they do, these are very big companies. Okay, so what the internal auditor does, he does not keep it for tomorrow, no. Okay, what he does is he checks it on the regular basis, that is he checks it daily, so that in future there won't be any problem. Okay, suppose if he keeps it for pending, then there might be chances that the invoices are lost. Okay, so as we know, when internal auditing ends, your statutory auditing begins. So your internal audit acts as a base for your external audit. Okay, then next one, to report the management. So the internal auditor checks the financial statements, rules, laws and procedures, whether they are aligned with the company's activities or no. Okay, so and then he gives the report to the management. As I have told you earlier also, the internal auditor is selected by the management and he reports to the management only and not to the shareholders. Okay, so the internal auditor does the SWOT analysis. Okay, SWOT means what? Strength, weakness, opportunities and threats. So what he does, he finds the strengths of the company, he finds the weaknesses of the company, he finds the opportunities and the threats. Okay, and accordingly he will give the suggestions to the management to work on that particular area wherever there are weaknesses and the strengths. Then provide working review, okay, to all the departments. Okay, let's take for example compliance department. Okay, so what is the work of compliance department? It does the work related to law. So after they finish their work, he checks their work, that is whether accounts are prepared as per the accounting standards or not, as per the rules and regulations, whether they are followed or properly followed or not. Okay, so he monitors working details continuously, because the financial statements will be audited by the statutory auditor and the laws and rules department will be finally audited by secretarial auditor. Okay, so why does he does that? Because the external auditor need not give a wrong report. Okay, so he has to give the good report to the shareholders. Okay, and he won't remove any query on whatever findings or whatever auditing is done by the internal report, and that the external auditor won't give any wrong report to the shareholders. Then the next one is asset protection. So he checks out if there are any flaws in the production process, whether they are used properly, whether they have correct supervision or no. So he checks the assets properly, okay, say inventory, okay, so whether the inventory entered in the books of accounts and whatever is there in the go down, whether it is matching or no. So he checks, okay. Now let's take the example of Facebook, okay. So the main asset of your Facebook is what? Data, that is your name, email ID, phone number, date of birth. So this is the data and it is used as the most important asset of the company. So wherever the server in which the data is stored, okay, it should be in a closed area, okay, that is there won't be access for everyone for that server, okay. So why do they keep it in a restricted area? Because to stop the data leakage, okay. Now they will give the access only to the owners or the IT heads, okay. That is what asset protection. So the internal auditor does the work of asset protection also. Then the next one, to act as a base for external auditor. So it is the external auditor who gives whether accounts are of true and fair view or not, okay. So internal auditor, what he does, he filters the financial statements, okay. If mistakes are found, then he tells beforehand about the mistake. If external auditors give a statement saying that your company is not using your money properly to the shareholders, at that time the shareholders will lose hope in the company, okay. If the shareholders lose the hope in the company, at that time there will be no capital, okay. So in order to protect the goodwill of your company, it is really very necessary that your financial statements, whatever the rules and regulations are there, you follow them correctly, okay. So the internal auditor checks all the things over here. Then the next one, to detect errors and frauds. So if the accountant and the board of directors, if they have done any errors, okay, at that time the internal auditor does the work of identifying and rectifying the errors, okay. In case of frauds have incurred, at that time he detects it, okay. Say for example, in the cash department, the cashier is stealing money every day, okay. Then it is the duty of the internal auditor to find out, okay, to find out that particular fraud. So how can he find out? Through the CCTV footage he can find out the fraud and give the report to the company. Then determine the liability, okay. I'm sorry, the spelling of breached is wrong over there. If the laws are breached, BREACHED, okay. So say for example, determination of liability. What is the tax payable? What are the provisions? Along with that, if you have broken any law, say you have paid less tax, then what are the penalties that will come, okay. What interest you have to pay? These things are also told by the internal auditor, okay. Suppose if you broke any environmental laws, okay, say for example your Taj, okay. So the Taj is losing its color, okay, that is it was turning into yellow because of acid rain. So all the industries which were around the Taj were located outside the boundaries, okay. So that is why it was the Mehta case. So if you breach the laws, okay, if you breach the environmental laws, then what are the liabilities, penalties? So he must know it and he gives a report pertaining to that also. Then independent report. So as we know the meaning of auditing is a systematic and independent process, okay. So here the internal auditor, even though he is working inside the company, he has to give his independent report, okay. He has to say, suppose if something is wrong, he has to say it as wrong. If there is breaching of accounting standards, then he has to say it, okay. He should not compromise with his duties and rights. Then to provide suggestion. So the internal audits aims to provide suggestions to the management as well as the board of directors, okay. Suppose if there are areas of corrections, then he has to give his valuable suggestions and he has to also give new ideas also, okay. Suppose if there are new innovations which can be employed, suppose if there is overstaffing, then in case if there is a department wherein there is use of lots and lots of manpower, at that time maybe there is some technology which is an alternative for that. So he can give his valuable suggestions in every area, okay. So that's it for the day. Thank you. Have a nice day.